Videos with Patreon plugs are good videos. Yes, but videos without Patreon plugs are good also. True, but with Patreon plugs you get to hear about perks like early premieres for VIPs and creator commentaries and other little doohickeys for everyone else. But once it's over you can watch the video, which is actually why we're here in the first place. Touché, and because you win you get to watch the video.
Hey!
Kintu Sukuroi is a kind of Japanese ceramic style which means to repair with gold. When a ceramic piece breaks, an artisan will fuse the pieces back together again using liquid gold or gold dust lacquer. So rather than being covered up, the breaks become more obvious and a brilliant new piece of art emerges from the brokenness. And each piece becomes more beautiful because it has been broken. In my wisdom and with all of my repairs, then, now, and ongoing, God is, has been, and will always be my artisan. All of my gold is forgiveness. And when you forgive, you heal. And when you heal, you move forward. I forgive myself for falling in love with a monster, and no matter how grotesque he may become, I still loved him, hoped, and forgave. I saw who he was inside. George made me then, now, and always love him for all of his cracks also. We made each other our own brilliant pieces of art from the cracks and repairs. Unfortunately, not all cracks can be.
There are few things on this earth more frustrating to witness than a cycle of abuse, and it's a frustration that the neighbours of Jorge Torres and Sarah Boone knew all too well. Unit 3 in Winter Park at 4748 France Court was that apartment. The one you constantly find yourself turning your head toward in the evening when the drunken hollering picks up again, often followed by some loud banging noises. And if they seem to be having a really bad night, you just need to wait for the flashing lights of an approaching police cruiser to come through your window as a final confirmation. George and Sarah had certainly had their fair share of really bad nights, and it was usually Sarah who called the police. Sometimes she'd be waiting out front with new shiners to show them. Other times she was all nothing to see here by the time they rolled up.
So I'm guessing you called for a reason, right?
Okay. Don't arrest him. Please don't.
Yeah, but you do realize he's here though, right?
322. Just trying to talk it out.
Have you been drinking?
I had a drink.
Okay.
Perhaps she just wanted George to be afraid of a jail cell more than she really wanted to put him in one. For some people, having a partner that strikes you isn't necessarily mutually exclusive from having one that's always under your thumb. Sometimes the former quality might even be the mechanism for the latter. That much would seem to track for Sarah, because whenever George did spend a night in jail, it was her who would always be there to bail him out. You could look at that as a classic hallmark of a battered woman, always rationalizing herself into seeing it as all her fault. Or maybe it was just Sarah's way of communicating to George just how helpless he would be without her. In any event, back in Unit 3 they would wind up again, and again and again and again. Until the evening of February 23rd, 2020, when around 10:30, 11 p.m. or so, one of their neighbours heard, or rather experienced, a crash coming from the unit so severe it felt as if it shook their own apartment.
Can you describe that sound for us in more detail?
The way their staircase was set up, my bedroom, the top of their staircase would have been like above my ceiling. So I could hear something start above me super loud and then fall away from me, like it was falling down the stairs.
But no hollering followed that one, nor the flashing lights of an approaching police cruiser. Maybe for once the loud noise wasn't the result of George and Sarah going at it. Maybe this time there really was nothing to see here.
911, what is the location of your emergency?
4748 France Court, apartment 3.
Is this a police or medical?
My boyfriend is dead.
Okay, send the line for the fire department. Do not hang up.
Okay, 4748 France, correct?
Correct.
All right, great. Now tell me exactly what happened there.
My boyfriend and I were playing last night, and I put him in his case and we were playing. And
Okay.
like kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep and I woke up and he was dead in the suitcase. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
This is a phrase we'll be hearing quite a bit from Sarah over the course of what's to come. And it's an intriguing one, because just from Sarah's own brief summary of events, it's extremely easy to discern what happened. It's also extremely easy to discern from that same brief summary that Sarah has placed herself in severe legal jeopardy, even if her basic synopsis is all there is to the story, which it's not, by a long shot.
He has like blood coming out of his mouth, and I don't know if like he had like an aneurysm or what happened.
Right, okay, all right, okay. Listen, we're getting help out there, too. Okay, is he hanging from somewhere or what, ma'am?
No, I pulled him out of the suitcase. I tried giving him CPR.
Okay, so he was in a suitcase?
Yes, and I fell asleep.
All right. I need you to get him on the floor, flat on his back for me, okay?
I did. I tried giving him CPR.
Are you right by him now?
Yes.
Is he cold and stiff?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he's not necessarily cold, but he's stiff. And
Right,
he's
okay.
purple.
All right, listen to me. Listen to me. I want you to lay him flat on his back for me on the floor.
I did.
Removing the pillows, okay.
Yes, I did.
All right, okay.
He's stiff and purple.
Right, okay, listen. Okay, man, that's fine. We're still going to do compressions on him, okay? All right? Place the heel of your hand on his breastbone, right in the center of the chest, right between the nipples.
Yes.
Put your other hand on top of that hand.
I'm telling you. Just by looking at him, you can tell.
Sarah is technically right on this count, but it's still somewhat unusual to hear her arguing with CPR instructions.
Okay.
Please! Okay, he just gurgled.
We want to pump his chest to me hard and fast, going to this twice per second.
I'm doing it again.
Okay, no, just keep on pumping. That's all you need to do for me. Keep on pumping his chest for me. I don't need you to stop and talk or anything. I just want you to count out loud for me, okay?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This is nothing.
Okay, ma'am, just keep on pumping his chest. That's all you need to do for me, okay?
Yes. Come on, please. Hurry up.
Okay, ma'am, they're driving here as fast as they can. Okay, don't stop to say hurry up. Just keep on pumping and counting.
I'm still doing it while I'm talking to you, okay?
Okay. 1,
We were playing hide
2,
and seek.
3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep on pumping for me, ma'am.
I'm doing it. Believe me, I'm doing it, okay? We were playing hide and seek.
When first responders arrived, they were able to confirm Jorge Torres was indeed gone far past the point of any hope for return, and it appeared Sarah Boone's deductive reasoning hadn't gotten any better with time.
I don't know what happened. He decided to get in the suitcase, so I thought it would be funny to zip him up in there. I go upstairs and fell asleep. So this afternoon when I actually got up out of the bed, I thought for sure he was downstairs on the laptop because he was being really quiet. But then I came upstairs and I'm like, where is he? Like, that's when I found him.
Can I ask, was he diagnosed with any kind of medical history?
Not that I know of. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't take drugs. I mean, we'll have the occasional bottle of wine here and there, but I don't know, like...
That was going to be my next question. So you guys don't normally drink? You just drink once in a while, or...?
This may be an egregious example of explaining the obvious, but because everyone in this clip is feigning ignorance on the matter, it's worth quickly chiming in to confirm that yes, a person confined to the inside of a zipped suitcase for a prolonged period of time will reliably suffocate, regardless of their medical history or drinking habits. Between the canvas and the zipper, not much oxygen can make its way in there.
Like, I don't understand though, like, for the little bit that we had, like, if that had anything to even do with it. Like, I don't know if he had a heart attack or a stroke or an aneurysm or what happened to him. I don't know.
But while Sarah continued to profess confusion as to how exactly George had come to die in there was one thing about the whole affair she was adamant about and made sure to get on the record.
Like, this was totally, like, not intentional. Like, that's what I'm scared about too. Like, hey. But do you guys tell his family, like, today or after tomorrow? We have to. It's the law.
We have to go and make contact with the family.
So, but like, what do you just tell him? What do you tell his parents? Like, what's the reason?
He passed away.
We tell them what we know at that point.
Yeah.
We tell them the truth.
But yeah, they're gonna know what we're here, what we're investigating, and that
They're gonna think I killed him.
Why would they think that?
They always have said that. They've always have said that.
What have they
I
said?
told you it's because I'm the blue-eyed white dragon. That's what they call me. Because they don't want him with me.
God only knows why. Anyway, the powers that be decided despite Sarah's already incriminating version of events, she wouldn't be placed under arrest right there and then. She agreed to let officers search the house and also handed her phone over to investigators in case any pertinent information might be uncovered on that. The next day, Sarah was contacted by the Orange County Sheriff's Office, letting her know that George's autopsy results were back and she could now pick up her phone. But upon her arrival, detectives Chelsea Kepsel and Scott Lowen told her they just had a few more questions.
So, this morning we went to his autopsy, and we were informed of some injuries that he has. So, So he's got scratch marks to his back.
I know what that's from.
Okay. And it's called a contusion. Do you know what a contusion is? So like basically you're getting hit and then you get a mark from it. You'll get bruising. Like someone hit you or something like that. It's called a contusion. So he had some injuries to his left shoulder. He had a cut near his lip. We could see his mouth was a little
I haven't laid a hand on him.
Okay.
Also, too, he fell off my son's bike.
Okay.
So I don't know. And he's notorious for running into the wall or the hall tree.
Okay.
So
Okay. What about the scratches? Because there's also sex.
Yes.
Okay. Because there's also like a scratch on the back of his neck, kind of going, but it's going straight across.
I have no idea what that's from.
And they're all recent. They occurred recently. It wasn't something that occurred post or that occurred a week ago or 2 days ago, 3 days ago. They definitely occurred, the night leading up to when he was.
In all honesty, we have not gotten into it. We had a good time sitting on the back porch, having wine and smoking a couple of cigarettes, and then decided to go inside and literally paint, do puzzles, and play, and listen to music. That's why nobody got out of sorts. This is what's mind-blowing to me. I have no clue. Nobody laid a hand on anybody.
He also had, on the left side of his forehead, he had basically bruising on, his head and his skull.
I have no idea.
As if something hit him.
I
considered
have not touched him.
Trauma.
I have not touched him. I have not touched him.
Then how would you get those injuries?
Tell me and we'll both know.
We'll tell you one theory. The state will wind up putting forward the notion Sarah was depraved enough to haul that suitcase with George inside of it up to the top of the stairs before sending it tumbling down. It's one way the injuries could have been created without any separate physical altercation, and would also explain the giant crash her neighbour recalled hearing that evening.
We had a good day. It was a good day. We've had good days lately. I don't even know where this is coming from.
Yeah, I don't even know. The last physical was probably, you said, I think, a month ago? Where you got the injury, right? You said that was a month ago?
A few weeks, give or take, yeah.
A few weeks. That was the last, physical altercation between the two of you? You said a month ago he hit you with a curtain rod.
Yeah, with a curtain rod. That's why I can't believe you guys didn't take that either.
You said you guys have been good. What's your definition?
I've been good. I don't think you all understand. He comes at me all the time. He comes at me.
So what do you mean by he comes after you?
He gets belligerently drunk. I don't know if you all have looked through my phone yet and seen any of the pictures and the videos that I have taken. And at one point, I started documenting everything.
Okay.
So you all will see in my pictures bloody fingers, split foreheads. He split my nose. I've got this where I had to have I had one really bad surgery, but then it got really, 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 really bad where I had to go 4 or 5 more times afterwards for them to tend to it. From him poking me in the back of the leg.
Right.
She's not necessarily lying about any of this. Right now, though, it's all rather secondary to the question of how Sarah could have innocently left George in the suitcase before going to bed, not foreseeing any safety hazards. Couldn't have been any kind of revenge, because, after all, they were having one of their good days, is likely the reasoning behind Sarah's confused narrative at this moment.
And he's still trying to take care of me and Lucas by paying a bill here or there, getting some groceries. So he always had something on his mind, which is why, again, I got the puzzles and the paint to try to get him off of it so we don't have a drink, or he doesn't have a drink. So when you all see my phone, you can see all of the damage he has done to me and the videos of him smashing my television because he's belligerently drunk.
Well, yesterday it made it sound like you guys were just drinking like a glass or two. Like, yeah, you obviously had the bottle, but you were not drunk, he was not drunk, you guys were having a good time.
I can't get drunk. Number one, I do not want to get drunk. I don't like being non-compos mentis, having my wits about myself. I don't like feeling out of control.
She is lying about this. There'll wind up being a fair amount of tedium around exactly how many drinks George and Sarah had that night. Detectives will ultimately point out 2 empty bottles of bottom-shelf Chardonnay were found in their waste bin, and Sarah will protest they only had a half a bottle from one that was still in the fridge from a different night. She shoots herself in the foot a bit with that one though, because they have receipts and surveillance proving 2 full bottles were purchased over the course of the day by the couple from a nearby Publix. So if you accept there was a half bottle still in the fridge, it can only add to the count. Furthermore, these were 1.5 litre bottles, which means double the standard volume, which means 2.5 bottles translates to what you would think of as 5, which means they were shit-faced. You could still argue we don't know from that whether Sarah had approximately 2.5 bottles or if George drank the lion's share, but, well, you'll see.
Were you guys drinking and it got out of hand and it got physical?
No!
Or is it...
Sunday was one of the better days that we have had in quite some time. He's dancing with my dog.
Sarah continues to emphasize what a good day they were having while downplaying how much they were drinking. And one can't help but notice how before even the infamous supposed game of hide and seek, their purported activities outside the alcohol have a strikingly childlike theme.
We were playing with the dog, whatever, and then it's like, okay, now let's do the painting. We just did the puzzle, took a break, now let's do this.
Jorge Torres sounds more like a baby than a boyfriend in her narrative, doesn't he? And that pushing of how much she cared for and believed in George with one hand, while emphasizing how hopeless he was with the other, is a pattern Sarah starts laying on thicker and thicker.
Nobody knew George better than I did. I say that I knew George better than himself. And I tried in every way, shape, and form. Ask everyone. I helped him. I took care of him. I miss him a lot, and I didn't even sleep last night. I miss him a lot.
I mean, is there any chance it got to be too much for you and you couldn't handle taking care of him and...
I never stopped. I never stopped. Okay. That's what I'm here for. I never stopped. I'm here now because I'm still trying to help him.
Yeah. We just don't, I mean, it's unexplainable how he got these injuries, and...
I have no idea.
You were the only one with him.
100% right hand to God. I have no idea how he got them. Nobody touched anybody. Nobody touched anybody.
Okay. You had mentioned that you take photos, videos, just kind of like a proof and just in general.
Yeah, I started documenting at one point, but that was way before, I think, the last time that he got arrested, where he was flying off the deep end.
Okay.
But then I had him bailed out. I got him out of jail.
Right.
But because he had violated the pretrial diversion, this time it's probation, so you don't have a choice in it. You have to go to see your probation officer. You have to go to these classes. It's court ordered.
Mm-hmm.
I even went down and met his probation officer, which I say she's wonderful. That's one of my questions too I need to talk to you about. Hugged me and said how much she knows that I take care of him. She called me personally. one time when George was at work, when he was working. 42-minute phone call. She and I just saying how grateful she is that George has me. And she knows how hard I'm working to help him, just as she is and just as the classes will. So once he started actually going on a regular basis to the probation officer and then to his substance abuse class and his, I don't know what BIP stands for, Batterers Intervention Program, and actually listening to what it is everyone had to say, he changed. Like I could see a change in him, where before lashing out, he would think about it. And would always come home and show me his papers, and we would look over his papers together. Where it's like, wow, you actually are learning this in class? And some of the stuff that they would show them, like videos, he would come home and be like, Sarah, I'm so sorry for what I've done to you. Because for a video that he watches to make him feel that way, where it's like, oh man, I have done her wrong. But he's changed. He changed.
After the detectives have gotten a clear enough picture of what a loving saint Sarah is, they ask her to walk them through the hide-and-seek thing.
What he does is, okay, tag, you're it. So it's like, okay, we know. Okay, take off. That's what we did.
And then you went upstairs, and then he didn't come up, and you came down.
Traditionally, the one who's it in the game of hide-and-seek is the one who does the seeking, not the hiding, but whatever, house rules may be. So Sarah was it first, she went upstairs, but George didn't seek her. Her narrative from that point is that she walked downstairs to find George, a slight man standing just 5'2", jovially attempting to fit himself inside a medium-sized suitcase that had been lying out in the middle of the living room because they were planning on donating it to Goodwill. Sarah helped George into his chosen hiding place, zipping the suitcase shut. This too runs counter to the rules of the game, where traditionally the seeker doesn't know the location of the hider. But again, whatever, let's just chalk that one up to drunken antics. And indeed, Sarah's last memories of George are of him having a great time and laughing at how funny this all was, until alas, she absent-mindedly went upstairs, got into bed, and drifted off to sleep. Never once being jolted by the realization she may have just sentenced her beloved to a slow and miserable death. It's genuinely difficult to think of what Sarah could do to make her story less believable than it already is. Yet she still found a way.
So, do you remember making any videos or maybe having any cover photos, videos that you remember doing on your phone on Sunday?
No.
No? Okay. So, I have something that I want to show you that we found, and it was from your phone.
Sarah.
No, I don't remember that.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Your battery's about to die.
Shut it down.
Oh, okay.
Always like tech issues to break the dramatic effect, but you already get the point. Though Sarah pretends not to while she sits awkwardly with Detective Lowen as Detective Kepsel retrieves a charger.
I don't think you all understand who I am, where...
Okay. Well, tell me.
I mean, I've always been a straight-A student. I am an outstanding mother to my son.
Okay.
I excel at everything. I would not do that.
You wouldn't zip somebody in a suitcase?
Well, I didn't, completely lock it. I mean, I opened it with one finger. I left enough in there for him to get out.
A few things to address there. One, a zipper is exponentially harder to unzip from the inside than out. You can try it yourself with something like a hoodie if you like, and keep in mind you're not compressed in the fetal position about as tightly as your body will allow as you do so. On top of that, the pull tab on the zip slider was missing, replaced by a paperclip. So even if there was a modicum of space left open somewhere in the zipper teeth that can't be seen in the video, the notion George could have easily released himself is abject nonsense, as is the notion that this reality would have been lost on a straight-A student like Sarah. Oh, and the drunken taunting she filmed undercuts her claim also. How lost would you be without cutting-edge analysis like this?
Is it long? Because I don't know how much I can take.
No.
It's that long?
2 minutes.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Sarah.
Stupid.
Sarah.
That's my name. Don't wear it up.
Sarah. I can't fucking breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me.
Sarah. Sarah.
I don't want to watch it, please.
Last time we talked to you, you had said that you put him in the suitcase, he had 2 fingers hanging out. And you
I
went
flipped
to
him
bed.
over.
Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
I flipped him over, and that's where it was.
There's 2 different videos and a still picture where, yeah, it shows you flipping him in different positions and him saying that he can't breathe and you saying fuck
So
you.
this is upside down. So in order for him to have gotten into it,
it was flipped up.
Right. It was flipped up normal.
Yes.
Like as if you're packing something. So this is upside down.
Guys, this is killing me right now.
So this image is upside down, and then this small video that occurred 11 minutes later, it's flipped over the other way, closer to your dining room table.
Okay.
Now he's obviously still in there. So he didn't, how did it go from the back to the front?
I flipped it.
Okay.
My plan was not to go upstairs and go to sleep.
Well, that's what you did.
Yeah.
But not intentional, though.
Not intentional will prove to be a bit of a mantra for Sarah Boone, who seems to think it's some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card in a legal system that has 0 carve-outs for profound negligence. Which is sort of a double whammy for her, given even if that were the way the system worked, the grotesque home video she's created would still block her from being a beneficiary of it.
I will put my hand on the Bible. It was not intentional. I would not do that to him nor anyone else.
But you did.
Not intentional.
You intentionally went up to bed.
I didn't intentionally go to bed because I'm thinking, okay, good, he can get out.
How did you not intentionally go to bed? You said you went upstairs and got into bed. That's intentionally going to bed.
Waiting for him.
Logical stonewalling and shameless contradictions make up probably about 80% of Sarah's interrogation. Another choice example is the subject of intoxication, which Sarah will flip-flop on with abandon depending on what she thinks will suit her at any given moment. Sometimes she will hold firm on the claim that she'd been drinking but wasn't drunk. Then, in moments when she seems to wager drunkenness could be a mitigating factor, she'll switch to flat-out blaming it on the wine.
I'm blaming it on the wine.
Blaming it on the wine? You were very adamant about the fact that both of you had your weapons out. What's your favorite word to use?
Compass mentis.
You've used it today too, to say that you guys are within your wits. There's two empty bottles of wine.
No, but we didn't drink both of them.
I think you did.
So I don't know what you guys are. I don't know.
We were just hoping that we could figure out why you...
What was the motivation?
There was no motivation.
Wow.
Well, we're watching a video that, after talking to you, everything was laughing and fun. Now we're watching a video where it's not laughing and fun. He's begging for his life, and you are in a very angry voice telling him to fuck off.
No.
Yes, that's absolutely what it was. It's not an assumption. The video's there. We played it for you.
So you guys think that I intentionally...
You did. You got up off the couch and walked up the couch, or walked up the stairs and got into bed. That was intentional. There's no way getting around that. You intentionally did that. Nobody drugged you up there. You didn't float up damn stairs.
Okay, well, it's not fair. It's not fair that you guys keep trying to say that that's what I did.
Sort of a visual representation for how we all feel in this moment, isn't it?
You realize you're the person that killed him, right?
I thought about that.
Okay, you left him in a bag when he's begging you, saying, I can't breathe, let me out, and you said, fuck you. And you got up off the couch and went upstairs and left him in that bag.
Not intentionally.
Again.
I would never do that to George.
You did.
Not intentionally. I did not intentionally do this. No malicious content or effort was towards this. No malicious.
I would
I'm
say,
disappointed
does that
video.
help you sleep? But you're not sleeping, so.
I mean,
Last night, I maybe got an hour.
Right.
in your voice, you can hear the maliciousness. The fuck you is very, very...
You don't talk to people like that. That's not like a common, like,
Nope.
hey, Scott, fuck you.
Thank you.
That's not common. It's not something people do. And no one that sees that is going to think that.
There's no maliciousness towards that.
So I would probably be telling myself that too after that video.
My intent was not for that to happen.
But you went upstairs and went to bed. Or maybe you passed out, I don't know. Whichever.
Waiting for him. And the whole time frame thing, it's like,
regardless,
that's not really fair.
Regardless, waiting for him, it's not like you walked up the stairs. You can't fly up the stairs, no one can take you up the stairs.
Okay.
You go up the stairs, you lay in the bed, and you wait for him. Who cares if it's 5 minutes? Who cares if it's 30 freaking seconds? He's begging for his life. He's begging to get out. You go upstairs.
You leave them.
It doesn't matter. So get the time frame out of your mind. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because there's this. So it doesn't matter anything what it is I say.
Nailed it. Maybe Sarah's finally coming around.
You're now changing your story.
Lying about what?
You're now you're drunk.
Oh, I never said that I was drunk.
Or maybe not.
I love George. Love him. To this day still. Love him.
Love makes you do crazy things.
It's not one of those things where it's like, oh gosh, you know what, I've done enough for you at this point. I never gave up on him.
Okay.
Why I'm here today, I'm still not giving up on him.
The pronounced pause following this statement suggests the detectives have no more of an idea of what the hell it's even supposed to mean than we do.
I would do anything for him.
Well, you gave up checking up on him.
Zing. Clearly we're past the rapport-building stage of this interrogation, if there ever was one. So Sarah's as good as under arrest right now. Another example of stating the extremely obvious, but also another example of the extremely obvious seeming to escape Sarah, who makes queries into when she will be getting various possessions back, such as her phone, her son's laptop, and this doozy.
How do I go about getting his wedding ring, engagement ring?
It's at the medical examiner's office. It'll come to us eventually, and then
It'll be released to the next of kin.
Yeah. Okay.
I bought it for him.
Okay.
That is a civil issue. It was on his finger. It goes to them. They're the ones that are going to release it. We don't have any say in that.
So I won't get that back.
Which really should be the least of her concerns in more ways than one. Because, disproving video aside, if Sarah really had unintentionally caused George to die such a horrible death through nothing other than profound negligence, if she did love him, you'd think she'd be able to feel enough guilt over that much to want the Torres family to keep the ring. When Detective Lowen leaves the room for a moment and Sarah's left with Detective Kepsel, she lets her guard down a touch and indicates she may actually have some idea of the amount of trouble she's in.
I get it. Look, I get it. That looks really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what scares me. Like, what do I need to plan on? Like, what do I need to plan on? I promise you, on my son's life, it was not intentional. I promise you, on Lucas's life, it was not intentional.
I'm telling the truth enhancers, like committing to swearing on a Bible for instance, rarely do anything to improve your believability in anyone's eyes. Not even the religious, and least of all criminal investigators. Frivolously invoking the life of your son in such a way is no more effective to that end, but does have a way of making you all the more loathsome. Sarah and co have to sit around for a little bit while they wait for an ID tech to collect voluntary DNA samples from her. Presumably the only reason left they haven't put the cuffs on her, lest she withdraw that consent, even though it's not as if that'll wind up being the crown jewel in the state's case at this point. During the downtime, she starts getting philosophical.
In itself, for me to have to live with getting him out and doing what I did is punishment enough. Punishment in itself. nonetheless, I have to live without him now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his daughters too.
Are you trying to make it worse?
Sarah Boone really does have a knack for making herself a bit less likeable every time you're just about sure you've reached the bottom. And yes, we do still have a ways to go. So the ID tech eventually shows up and takes Sarah's voluntary DNA samples. And then, sure enough...
Why is this happening?
Because George is dead.
Not intentionally.
We understand that.
He's still dead.
Well, we don't
Someone
really
needs to
understand.
call.
No, they did not really understand that. Though ultimately it wouldn't really matter anyway, as Sarah was charged with second-degree murder, which did not necessarily require the state to prove she intended to cause George's death, rather that she caused it by way of a criminal act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life. Something Sarah's ghastly video would seem to illustrate in spades. In Florida, second-degree murder carries a minimum of a very specific 16.75 years in prison and a maximum of life. But in the unlikely event a jury couldn't come to a consensus on that one, they would also have the option of manslaughter, the charge that comes to most people's minds when they think of unintentional killings. Slightly watered down in its language, that charge would merely require that Sarah committed an act or acts not necessarily criminal in and of themselves, but that did cause George's death and exhibited culpable negligence on Sarah's part. In Florida, manslaughter carries a minimum of 9¼ years in prison and a maximum of 15. But with wording like that and circumstances like this, cases do not get much more cut and dried. And the lesser included charge of manslaughter could be looked at as a sort of worst-case insurance policy for the state and an absolute pipe dream for Sarah. As little as anyone likes the prospect of prison, most people in her position would likely fall on the sword and try to plead down somehow. Maybe even cop the murder too and hope a show of contrition and your otherwise bestest behaviour might score you a discount down to that sweet 16.75 years. Or whatever your lawyer was able to negotiate. Not Sarah though, who would you believe was just a monumental pain in everyone's ass, not least of which those of her own lawyers. In the 4 years and change it took for her case to finally make its way to trial, she went through 8 of them.
I can't effectively represent her. She doesn't trust me. She calls me a dud, I think, a buffoon. On and on and on and on. And no one should have to endure that type of derogatory comments and expect to effectively represent someone, especially in a murder case.
But according to Sarah, in every instance, it was the lawyers who were being too sharp with their tongues.
The last time we spoke was on May 3rd, where I got up and I left the room because I could not take how she was treating me any longer, and it was every single time. So much so that I had to incorporate a pre-10 judge in order for her to treat me somewhat appropriately. And I feel that she is untruthful with me and full-blown prejudice against me, which I believe adds to her nasty attitude towards me.
Imagine being in an argument with Sarah Boone while Sarah Boone roleplays as Sarah Boone's conception of what a judge would probably be like in the situation, and not developing what Sarah Boone deemed to be a nasty attitude. Though public defender Sarah Cashman still managed to be diplomatic in her representation of the experience.
Ms. Boone is correct. She has walked out of the last 2 visits when I've tried to review things with her. Some of the things that she thinks are important from a lawyer perspective, perhaps I don't attach the same importance to.
I have told her from day one that her snotty attitude was inappropriate. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, but I'm not saying that I'm trying to remove her. I'm just trying to ask you, please, forgive me for having to ask you for this. If you could please let her know, please, to just be nice to me and have a welcoming attitude, and things will probably change, and I will not get up and I walk out.
But evidently, Attorney Cashman could not live up to Sarah Boone's conception of nice, her exit marking her as former Boone attorney number 8. At that point, it was determined that she had forfeited her right to counsel and would have to go the way of self-representation. But once Sarah got some experience with the pitfalls of that,
Forgive me, because I don't know what I'm doing.
she took one last shot at getting a lawyer she could see eye to eye with. And giving credit where it's due, it must be said she went about looking for one in a genuinely innovative way, penning a full-page style ad with a Sharpie and sending it in a letter to the court. By doing so, her ad became official correspondence subject to public disclosure, something Sarah had become all too familiar with, as she had penned a lot of letters to the court over the years, which we won't be getting into. All you need to know is the media had become as fond of reporting on Sarah's ridiculous letters as she had been of writing them. So using that dynamic to her advantage, Sarah secured what must have been a small fortune's worth of television advertising space without spending a red cent. And it was a hell of an ad too, pumping up the high-profile nature of her case and appealing for original creativity, which God knows would come in handy given the evidence this new recruit would be tasked with combating. Other mandatories included open-mindedness and exceptional problem-solving skills, as well as faith in her and her case. Ultimately, Sarah found herself a taker in the form of an attorney by the name of James Owens, who in this video's opinion met the job description very well, as the defense he ultimately cooked up for Sarah with only weeks left on the clock till trial was nothing if not creative. Because if you've watched this far, you may well think Sarah had no defense. But it turns out it would be more accurate to say that Sarah had the barest of bare threads of a defense. Here's the basics of what James Owens put forward. To start with, Sarah Boone was a battered woman. Now, the tumultuous relationship between George and Sarah was, by any reasonable reading, a blame-to-go-around type deal, but just focusing on Sarah's grievances for the time being, she was certainly assaulted by George on multiple occasions and had the black eyes, bruises, and scratches to show for it, as well as a particularly nasty gash in her leg from a time Sarah claims George stabbed her with a steak knife when he wasn't happy with a dinner she'd made. In spite of this violence, Sarah would continually take George back in, which is common enough with battered spouses as to be sort of a cliche. And in the same way, long-term couples can come to pick up on one another's idiosyncrasies so well they begin to finish each other's sentences. A shift in body language or vocal tone so minor as to be imperceivable to just about anyone else on Earth could clue a battered spouse onto profound and imminent danger. Which brings us to the events on the evening of February 23rd. Sarah's version of events up until the zipping of the suitcase were more or less the same at trial as they were in her interrogation. Fun and games all round all day, and getting zipped up during a non-traditional game of hide-and-seek was George's idea. But it was after George was zipped in the suitcase that things stopped being fun and games. Obviously. But through a different prism than we've been looking at things up until now. With George confined to the suitcase, Sarah suddenly felt at liberty to raise some of her grievances with him where she would have otherwise felt unsafe doing so. Hence, she took the opportunity to explain how unhappy George had been making her with his violence, as well as other things like using her phone to watch pornography. And that heart-to-heart was what you've seen documented by her video recording.
I can't fucking breathe, babe.
Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me.
Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
Oh, that's what I feel like when you ching on me.
Sarah!
Fuck you!
Perhaps it came out a little less elegantly than she intended on account of the wine, but a sincere expression of grievances is more or less what she claims she was trying to get across. After that recording, George did continue to ask to be let out, but in doing so, his tone shifted, and Sarah caught a scent of that profound and imminent danger. Consequently, she didn't let him out, and George's anger shifted from subtle to explicit. He threatened to fucking end her. Now Sarah realized she couldn't let George out, because if she did, George would either kill or seriously assault her. And so she used the suitcase as what Attorney Owens termed a unique form of physical restraint. Though at one point it seemed as if it wouldn't be enough, because George poked 3 or so of his fingers through an opening in the zipper teeth not visible in the recording. Seeing that George was on the cusp of freeing himself and subsequently beating Sarah within an inch of her life, if not the whole way to the end of it, she grabbed her son's baseball bat, which had been leaning up against a dining table nearby, and jabbed his hand back in the suitcase. That act accounted for bruising found on George's hands, and the general struggling around with the bag and the bat in the main during this time is also the most likely cause of the other bruising on George's face, back and arms. Though Sarah's not admitting she went to town on the bag with the bat, just the bare minimum required for George to put his hand back in and be stilled. So now George had been restrained, and given his history of domestic violence, Sarah's fears were justified, putting her within her legal rights to restrain him. She would not, however, be within her legal rights to let him suffocate, of course, bringing us to our next and greatest hurdle. There are a handful of carve-outs for justifiable and excusable homicide in Florida law, and probably the closest in reach for Sarah's story is a clause that states the killing of a human being is excusable and therefore lawful when it is committed, quote, by accident and misfortune in doing any lawful act by lawful means, with usual ordinary caution and without any unlawful intent. The ordinary caution part is clearly the biggest sticking point here. If the jury can agree that George's death should have been foreseeable in the circumstances to an ordinary, reasonable person, then Sarah should be cooked. So what could she possibly put forward to put her action of heading upstairs and getting into bed before accidentally drifting off within the bounds of ordinary caution in her specific circumstances? One thought might be to appeal to her drunkenness. What's ordinarily foreseeable to a sober person might not be so clear to someone running on well north of a litre of Chardonnay. No dice though, because in Florida, voluntary intoxication resulting from the use of alcohol is not a defense to a crime. So sorry, Sarah, but
I'm blaming it on the wine.
Won't be a viable argument here. The best that her defense can really ask is for the jury to see ordinary caution, not through the prism of what would be ordinary for an ordinary person, but rather for Sarah in the context of the situation she was in as she tells it, coupled with how her actions were informed by previous experiences. Calling the police to release George from the suitcase and keep him at a safe distance was out, because Sarah had previously had a bad experience with being arrested herself after calling the police over a domestic. It basically came down to police observing cuts and scrapes on George as well as her. All justifiable self-defense, of course, but the police just didn't get it. And she feared that if they arrived to find her unique form of physical restraint that evening, they might not get that either. And hey, let's give it to her. They probably wouldn't. Still not a justification for letting him suffocate, but if you accept her claim that gap in the zipper teeth was in fact there somewhere, and you accept that much gave Sarah enough reason to believe that George could receive adequate oxygen and eventually even release himself, then maybe, just maybe, you could find your way to calling it an accident within the bounds of usual ordinary caution. Now, why exactly Sarah didn't feel she would be in imminent danger of George walking upstairs and fucking ending her once he made this totally plausible escape has never really been explicitly addressed. Presumably, she was just confident he would calm down with time. It is a full court shot of a legal argument if ever there was one. But full court shots do get sunk once in a while, and as a rule of thumb, people don't tend to look very kindly upon men who beat their women, reciprocal abuse or no. You just never can say for sure what a jury will do. And that is perhaps part of the reason why, just before trial, the state extended Sarah Boone a plea deal. And it was a good one. So good, in fact, some might call it offensive. Sarah would be given the opportunity to plead guilty not to second-degree murder, but the lesser-included charge of manslaughter, along with its maximum sentence of 15 years in prison. Only Sarah wouldn't necessarily have to serve every inch of that 15 behind bars, rather 85% of it, or 12.75 years, minimum. In addition to that, the 4.75 years that had gone by while Sarah Boone wasted the government's time and resources with her obstructionism would be credited as time served, meaning from the day Sarah signed on the dotted line, she would potentially be out on parole in as little as 8 years, with about half of her 50s still left to make the most of, for the crime of suffocating her boyfriend while laughing about it on camera. Again, while appreciating pretty much no one relishes the idea of prison, taking all circumstances into account, it was a proposition so generous as to almost seem crafted by the state just to test if Sarah Boone had any more terrible decisions left in her.
Do you wish to accept or reject the state's offer to resolve this case?
Reject.
It's one of those things you can see coming from 10 miles away, yet somehow your jaw still drops when it actually happens. Anyway, with that final lifeline thrown away, it was time for Attorney Owens to put on his case. But doing so involved one big challenge not already mentioned. A very large chunk of his argument depended on trusting the account of Sarah Boone, much of which differed from the account she gave in her interrogation. This meant that before even worrying about getting the jury to believe Sarah's version 2.0, he would first need to get it in front of them for their consideration, and that meant that Sarah would need to take the stand.
So over the course of that evening, drinking the wine, what did y'all do for time-wise?
I would always try to come up with entertaining activities for George, and I bought a puzzle. We started off at one point doing a smaller puzzle, and then we did that very quickly, so then I purchased a larger puzzle, and I believe it was 1,000 pieces.
All right, after the puzzle, what did y'all do?
I have a bunch of paints that I used of my son's that his grandmother bought him. It's a very big art wooden box, and it's got pastels, pencils, paint, any kind of whatever. And he and I were very much into art, and with this resource, it got him very interested in being more creative. After we had completed the puzzle and I guess were painted out, I thought that it might be a good point for us to maybe listen to some music. So we ended up finding some channel on the radio, and he was feeling it. And then we ended up, my one dog gets very active and was dancing with us, and we were just having a good time listening to music. I remember sitting at the end of the couch and him sitting in one of my son's chairs that was in the living room, and just kind of doing this. Like, what are we going to do now? Like, I very much would like to go to sleep. Tapped me on my knee and said, "You're it." So from there, I ran up the stairs and hid into our shower, just waiting for him to find me so we could hopefully go to sleep soon at some point. And I went downstairs to find where he was. I looked over and I saw him settling himself in the suitcase. I walked over and he was trying to get himself flat, so I couldn't tell that he was in there. And then I zipped him up. We thought it was funny, and we're joking about how he was, I guess, small enough to fit inside of the suitcase.
So you zipped him up. Were y'all still laughing once you zipped him up?
Yes.
Okay. Tell the jury what happened then.
From there, I moved the suitcase around a couple of times, just kind of on the wheels, and moved it around. And at that point, it was funny. We were joking and laughing about it.
All right, now eventually, did you go sit down on the couch and get your phone?
Yes. The suitcase had, from me moving it around, was flopped over. So while it was like that, I thought at that point I had a moment to, I guess, take the time to talk to him. I went over and decided to videotape to just see the jest in it, for him to understand that right now I feel safe, and right now I have the ability to actually speak to you in a manner that normally I would not have the ability to do.
And this right here is probably the strangest thing about Sarah's chosen narrative. Pretty much all of the justifiability of her actions hinges on believing that George was acting really scary. Yet the filming of the first video, with all of George's pleading and Sarah's taunting, is placed before she'll claim he started acting scary. And given the video and Sarah's behaviour captured in it comes first, any anger or even threats that follow from George are only framed as more foreseeable and frankly relatable. It's hard to even theorise why she decided it was best to structure things this way, unless you wanted to argue it's just because Sarah's version 2.0 really is God's honest truth as best as she can recall it, and she'd rather present that than lie to make herself look better. But then again, if she's going to voluntarily cast herself as that guilty, she may as well have taken the damn plea.
You said some things you should not have.
Yes.
Right. But you realized he could not get out and get at you. Is that fair?
At that moment, yes.
You mentioned, you talked about it before. You said he was in that confined space and it was my chance. But is that, do you want to elaborate on that? Or?
Sure. I want you all to know that the majority of the time, am always afraid and always scared.
Okay, I understand that. But would it be fair to say you had some anger at that point?
I did.
Would it be fair to say that you wanted to tell him off to some degree?
I just wanted, yes, for him to have a better understanding, which was the whole point of the videos and documentation prior.
And you could tell that he was uncomfortable.
I'm guessing.
And did you want him to feel some uncomfort?
I did.
Okay. So between the 2-minute video and the 22-second video is an 11-minute period. Would you tell the jury what happened?
We continued to, I guess, speak to one another, and his tone changed, and I knew the tone, and we ended up, I guess, arguing back and forth with one another, and the things that he was saying very much frightened me, and cursing at me and threatening me. And he continued to push on the suitcase, and my fear was that he was going to break out of the suitcase knowing that it was a broken suitcase.
Can you tell the jury what he was saying?
I don't know. Am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
But he was going to fucking end me. His hand started to come through. His hand started to come through this way. And so I shook the suitcase. Trying to get his hand to go back in, shaking it, and telling him that, please stop doing this. Please stop doing this to me. Please stop doing this to me.
So his hand actually got out of the suitcase?
Yes.
And you went to the suitcase?
Yes.
And shook it?
Yes.
Did that force his hand to go back in?
No.
How far was the bat from the suitcase?
3 feet, 2 feet.
And so what did you do?
For the split-second reaction that I had, I happened to see that, and I grabbed the baseball bat and was trying to poke his hand to go back in, to please don't break through, please. So I hit his hand.
And you thrusted it into the different areas of the suitcase?
I started with his hand, and his hand, he was still trying to get out. He was still trying to do that. So I started to push on the suitcase around it, hoping to have his hand retract and go back inside.
Did his hand go back inside from you doing?
Yes, finally he had subsided and retracted his hand.
You know, those bruises that we saw of him, they look pretty deep. Tell the jury what you were thinking.
I didn't want to die that night. I can't describe it to you. It's terrifying love to a certain degree, where I wanted him to be better and treat me nicer, and if it weren't me with the bat, it would have been him, if he were to have gotten out.
Now, once he retracted his hand, he was upside down, was he not, at that point?
Yes.
At some point, you flipped him back up.
I did.
Tell how that happened.
He wasn't cursing, he wasn't threatening, his hand was inside foremost. There was no more of him trying to break through the suitcase. So I felt safe enough to turn it back over. It wasn't happening anymore.
Had you left enough room for him to get out? Zipper to zipper?
Yes, that's how his hand was trying.
Did you believe that he could breathe in there?
Yes,
Did you walk upstairs?
I did, yes.
Why didn't you let him out before you walked upstairs? Were you afraid?
Terrified is more of the word.
Do you remember waking up the next morning?
Yes,
Did you sleep in?
not intentionally.
Okay. But you didn't get up at 8 o'clock, did you?
No,
Did you wake up closer to noon?
I believe so, yes. I figured that George was downstairs either drinking or looking for jobs or may have just left. And so eventually I decided to get out of the bed and start moving to go downstairs. I was motivated enough to go downstairs. And when I went downstairs, it was very quiet. So I had the understanding, I believed that he had left. I checked the bathroom, and when I was checking the bathroom, I saw the suitcase, and I remembered about the night prior, and I unzipped the suitcase and...
Let me stop you there. How did you feel when you saw the suitcase?
I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that before.
Describe it to the jury.
It was terror to a certain degree. I just can't describe it in words, the feeling of remembering. And then he was still in there.
Your testimony was that after that first video was captured by your phone and you, Mr. Torres began getting angry and trying to push his way out, correct?
He had been angry on and off throughout the entire day.
Okay. You didn't tell us that earlier. You said it was a wonderful, fun day all day, correct?
That's because I lived.
But you did not tell us earlier today that he had been angry throughout the day.
When would I say that?
You described your entire day of doing puzzles and arts and crafts, and you said it was a wonderful day and everything was fun until he was in the suitcase. Did you not testify to that earlier today?
I did.
My specific question between these two movies is, this is when he begins to get angry and trying to push his way out and to get out of the suitcase, correct?
Angry again, yes.
A nice example here of the stubborn contradictions of Sarah Boone. George being angry and threatening at any point that day prior to the suitcase incident has indeed never been a part of her story. Not in her interrogation or version 2.0. A good day all round up until and even a little time after that bag was zipped has always been the narrative. In the last minute, you just saw her change it to he'd been angry on and off throughout the entire day, then acknowledge she's just testified to everything being wonderful and fun that day up until the suitcase, and then as soon as that acknowledgement's passed her lips and the prosecutor reiterates he got angry after being put in the suitcase, Sarah makes sure to interject, angry again, all the while looking straight ahead and perfectly sure of herself. She doesn't even attempt to explain the change, as if from her perspective there is no change to explain. Much like her interrogation where she went back and forth between not being drunk and blaming it on the wine, no matter how much her claims are fundamentally at odds on their face, she honestly can't seem to understand why you shouldn't believe her on both counts. Now watch her do exactly the same thing again.
Your purpose of filming is to kind of teach him a lesson. This is your chance to say something to him when he can't say anything back to you, correct?
No.
Then correct me.
There was no lesson to be learned. It was just I wanted him to try to understand how I felt so maybe he could progress in being a better person the next day.
So, you wanted him to understand how you felt in the past, and that's not teaching a lesson?
I just wanted him to understand.
Okay. Now, your testimony, it seems like you spend day after day finding things to entertain Mr. Torres to do, correct?
Yes.
What you described sounded like having a small child. Would you agree?
That's your interpretation.
Okay. Well, you take him from doing arts and crafts to doing puzzles, so on and so forth, correct?
When he's been drinking, yes.
Prosecuting attorney William Jay's line of questioning here touches on how the state went about colouring the troubled relationship between Sarah Boone and Jorge Torres. They didn't try to refute that George was at times violent, though there's an argument for fabrications and/or embellishments in certain instances that we just won't get into today. But fair to say intimate partner violence is bad, and insofar as it's present, you shouldn't make excuses for it. So try not to take the following as an excuse, but rather a necessary fuller picture. During the course of their tumultuous relationship, Sarah developed a habit of sometimes filming George to capture a record of what was happening and also disincentivize him from violence. Now, he always knew he was being filmed, so it follows well enough that we don't witness any full-on beatdowns in those recordings.
As of this moment, and until I can get you out,
Get the fuck out of here.
you're a roommate. I dare you. Yep. Look at him.
Get the fuck out of here, dude. Get the fuck out of here.
Get away from me. Get away from me. Get away from me. I'm gonna scream bloody murder.
But Sarah also always knew she was on tape, of course. So it is curious that in spite of that, her recordings would just about invariably cast her in a worse light than him.
Are you gonna be nice tonight?
Yes. Yes. I promise you. I just
Go for a walk.
by myself.
Yes.
No.
Go for a walk.
No, I'm just gonna chill out. So much like this.
Don't ever be a woman.
How can I be a woman?
Don't ever.
I can't. But I can somewhat understand.
Don't ever.
I can somewhat understand.
I'm cooler than you.
No, yeah, you are.
Go get your fucktard shit.
What are you talking about?
Your retard paper. Where are my car keys?
Why would I take your freaking car keys?
Oh, you're not gonna curse now?
You can film me, take a picture, or whatever you want.
You can tell you're automatically drunk.
I'm not doing
Do
it.
I ever get a buzz? No, I don't.
I'm not doing.
No, I
Sarah,
never do.
I'm not doing anything to you, Sarah.
That's my name. Don't wear it out.
I was I was watching porno and she don't like that. I'm not shrugging my shoulders or anything like that. Like it's not no big deal.
After you begged and pled and cried.
Yeah.
I'm gonna trust you.
I know. I'm not shrugging my shoulders.
Say it. Beg. Pled. Cried.
You begged.
I didn't. You did.
Well, whatever. Okay. Yeah, I did.
Say it.
I begged and
pled. And cried.
I'm gonna go to court and I'm gonna tell the judge, listen, my fiance has nothing to do with this. It's all my fault. She's a good woman. She's never been in trouble in her life. She has a 7-year-old son that she loves and cherishes.
A blind Boston Terrier.
She has 2 dogs. One is blind, one is deaf. Every relationship has their arguments, but we are not the type of people that you guys are portraying us to be.
She especially.
Especially her.
Good person.
She's a great person.
Angel.
I know she'd be an angel, but she's close to it.
Best thing that has ever happened to you.
Yes, ma'am. Good night, Sarah. Love you, though.
I don't love you. I don't like you. I don't want to be with you.
It's not like it's earth-shattering stuff that proves all their problems were 100% on Sarah's end. What's more important is what the clips don't seem to depict. Sarah Boone as a classic battered woman living in constant fear. She treats George less like an imminent threat and much more like a child, not in a nurturing way either, regularly demeaning him, keeping him in his place.
And then you come over there and thinking that it's funny, you zip him shut, correct?
Yes, we both thought it was funny.
Okay. Can the defendant stand down?
ventured into the well?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Boone, can you demonstrate for the jury where Mr. Torres' head was and how his body was positioned in the suitcase, if you don't mind?
His back was this way and his head was here.
All right, and then is it fair to say his feet are kind of down here, which would be the front left corner from their perspective in the jury box?
Yes.
And then his knees are kind of tucked up towards his face?
If I remember correctly, yes, that's the position.
Okay. Can we see how it was that the two zipper parts were positioned when you say that Mr. Torres was able to get his hand out?
This is how the suitcase was. This was up here. This was not this hard either. This was like here.
Okay.
Right here.
About right there, ma'am?
Sure.
Okay. I assume this one was much closer? It's not over there? Where do you...
You asked me where I zipped it.
When you say that it was zipped shut, show us.
I mean, it was the corner. I mean, the corner was cut open. I mean, it's not... Yes, this one was already pretty much, yes. From what I can remember. That's how he was coming with his hand out. It was like this from the corner part.
This is a fatal problem for Sarah's case. Her approximation of the size of the gap she left in the zipper looks to be several inches wide, and more importantly, she's placed it at the front handle side on the left corner, a placement that can be checked against the videos. In the first video, the bag is flipped upside down, and George's weight is distributed disproportionately toward the corner in question, making the zipper harder to see. However, George pushes up against the floor of the bag several times, and in doing so gives us brief though clear enough glimpses of where the gap should be showing up. But it doesn't. Then, just for good measure, when the suitcase was upright and Sarah began filming again 10-odd minutes later, the supposed gap in the zipper teeth was no more apparent. It does look like there's what might be one of the zip sliders on the right corner, clearly further along than Sarah says it should have been. But if so, we have no reason at all to believe it's not firmly pressed up against the second slider out of frame, sealing the bag completely shut.
Did you ever change the position of those zippers once you put it in that position?
I did not.
And with that, Sarah threw away possibly the only theoretical lifeline she could have had left. Though it really is nothing more than theoretical. As you've clearly seen, the basic facts of this case would give a jury enough to convict Sarah of the second-degree murder charge several times over, no matter what narrative you tried to dress them up in. So in 90 minutes flat, convict her they did. And before she was sent off to spend some more time in her own confined space, Sarah Boone was given one last chance for that show of contrition the world had been so desperately waiting for.
God is, has been, and will always be my artisan. All of my gold is forgiveness. This has held me together, made me shine brighter, and overcome the damage caused by Jorge Torres, the Torres family, the justice system, Orange County Corrections Department, social media, scoundrel detectives, infamy, defamation, ongoing constitutional rights violations, second-degree murder, forced into being pro se. Just as gold is very precious, forgiveness is invaluable. I forgive George for beating me senseless, for trying to sleep because I had to go to work or my son's field trip the next day, for ruining my deceased family's heirlooms, traditions, and keepsakes, my son's furniture, for threatening to make me unrecognizable to my son by breaking all of the bones in my face, like his brother Moses did to him after he kept seeing all of the bruises from George beating me, like all of the times their father beat their mother, for me experiencing ever being arrested and after today, prison. I forgive George for lying, for him trying in so many ways, so many times, to end me with his terrifying love. I also forgive the Torres family, his mother and father foremost, also his 2 ex-wives and daughters, all for knowing who George was, capable of, and has done in the past, his history of violence and where he learned it, then to keep turning a blind eye when I would ask for help. I hope they all ask themselves while quiet and comfortable in bed at night the uneasy question, what could I have done to stop this from happening to both of them, and after all the time Sarah tried to by asking for help, from all of us and so many times. Another great contributor of my gold is social media, with its greed, insensitivity, deception, obvious exploitation, and advantageous gain from my criminal case as a whole, and for sentencing me by anticipation as a result of ignorance and hate, conjured and fabricated by the organized crime that is social media, which condemned me in the court of global public opinion since the beginning. Forgiveness for prejudgment, ridiculous theatrics, lies, making and taking blood money from my and others' misfortunes, accidents, and catastrophes. It's all over their hands and their keyboards. In the end, I forgive myself for not choosing my life sooner, for not being more brave, vigilant, bolder, and outspoken, stronger, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, for being hopeless, desperate, simple-minded, weak, and inexperienced. I forgive myself for not realizing I was enduring a life of domestic violence and that the vicious cycle of never ends. I forgive myself for falling in love with a monster, and no matter how grotesque he may become, I still loved him, hoped, and forgave. I tried breaking the spell so he wouldn't be a monster anymore. I saw who he was inside. George made me then, now, and always love him for all of his cracks also. We made each other our own brilliant pieces of art from the cracks and repairs. Unfortunately, not all cracks can be.
She was given the maximum of life in prison without the possibility of parole, though still with credit for time served.